Hey everybody, thanks for joining me again. We're still cruising along on the CJ5 Restomod project here. So it's a Wednesday night. Yeah, I had to think about that for a minute. Sometimes the days run together. It's a Wednesday night. It's a little bit late at night. I'm not going to get much really done tonight, but I'm out here doing kind of a planning session. So this is a big project. There's a lot of moving parts, and I want to make sure I get them all in the right order and I don't do anything in the wrong order or paint myself into a corner. So bear with me. I'm going to tear into this and I'm going to do some explaining of what I'm ready to do. So let's get rolling on this episode, and I'll talk about what we're going to do as we get prepped for this weekend. Okay, so here's where I'm at. I'm just doing a little bit of planning for the weekend out here in the garage on a Wednesday night. So I'll tell you what I've got on the docket for this weekend. I'm planning on getting the frame off the leaf springs, off the axles, and getting it somehow inverted. I'm gonna just try to use my engine hoist here and hook it up there. You know, I've got it fully extended, so at that point it's supposed to only support 1/4 of a ton. But if you bring it back down to these smaller holes, it'll support up to 1 ton, which obviously that frame doesn't weigh that much. So I think I've seen 2 guys lift these frames up. So anyway, here's what I've done. I've ordered some a little bit shorter leaf springs. I ordered some that are, I think the brand name is Rock Jocks or something like that, but they're greasable spring shackles with the energy suspension bushings on there. And let me just show you what I've got here. So my existing shackles are these right here, and from bolt to bolt, the centers on the bolt there are about 5 inches or so, and I think we're 4 inches on the new ones. So you're gonna see I'm gonna lose a little bit of my lift overall, and in my opinion that's a good thing. I only run 33-inch tires on this thing, not great big 35s or 44s or any crazy thing like that. And I don't know if you noticed it, but when I was taking out the drive shaft and the transfer case and so forth, that rear drive shaft's on a pretty steep angle. So any of that angle I can lose by bringing the axle, you know, kind of dropping the frame down, I think will be better for the long-term life of my drive shaft U-joints, as well as on that front steering arm that connects to the dropped pitman arm. The concept with that, I do know, is you want it as parallel to the ground as you can get it. And mine, with this current size of my shackles, was lifted up a little bit, even though I did have that dropped pitman arm there. So again, I'll get that a little bit closer to level to the ground. I'm not sure we'll get right level, but that will help the steering. And then I also ordered from the guys up at Throttle Down Kustoms in Montana that their kind of hardcore built cross member there. It's built out of mandrel bent tubing, and it's got a skid plate that you can take off to change your oils and that without having to drop the whole pan. So got that on its way down here. It looks to me like that's going to be here Friday, so we'll be able to get that primed and so forth. And then from those good boys at eastwood.com, I ordered some frame paint. Just some black paint to cover over this primer. I kind of forgot about the paint when I was ordering that, or I think I was thinking, oh, maybe I can just go get some of that from, you know, the Home Depot or whatever. But having watched their video on how that, I think I showed you the cans with kind of the weird lid. Well, what it looks to me like you do is you take that lid off and you push it into the bottom, and it pierces a cylinder in there, and that's what mixes the resin and the paint together as you're spraying that stuff on. And that's what their frame paint does. So what their video shows is they're kind of selling you that, which I realize it's a sales video, but it shows that, you know, compared to just your basic hardware store paint, it's much stronger, longer lasting, more flexible, less prone to rock chips and so forth. So I ordered some of that. And so what I'm planning is to get this frame upside down, get the bottom part of the rails that I haven't cleaned off yet cleaned off, sand it down, ready for primer, get them primered, and then leave it that way until that paint gets here. Then I'll paint the bottom, then I'll flip it back over and paint the top, and then the frame will be totally ready to go. And by getting that cross member in here, that component will be ready as well. And then as I put it back together, I'll be putting those shorter greasable spring shackles in there, and I'll basically have the leaf springs done. They'll be on for good, and the suspension will be good. One thing I am going to do, I did notice when I was working on this that it looked to me, and this was just kind of an eyeball thing, but it looked like when I was looking at the angle here from the thrust line angle from the drive shaft to the crankshaft, it looked like I was off a little bit, and I don't know if that was the engine was sitting a little crooked in the motor mounts, everything was kind of loose on the motor mounts when I was taking it off, or if the last time I bolted this drive shaft or this rear differential back in, I don't have it centered. So I'll be taking great pains to measure this, find my center point, drop a plumb bob line down from the center, and make sure I do get this differential exactly centered so that I can start to work my driveline angles, straight everything up, and make sure then as I set the engine and the transmission and transfer case back in, keep a nice straight line there. So again, tonight I'm just planning, but I think I got a pretty solid plan here, and I think I've bought the pieces and parts that I need. The one last piece that I'm going to get ordered before the tub gets here, hopefully, well, two things. One is the gas tank. I think I showed you when I was pulling the tank out, it was pretty gnarly, so I'm going to go with one of those polyurethane tanks, I think it is. But I do have a question about the skid plate for that, so I've got to reach out to the guys at, I think I'll go through Morris 4x4 because that's who I'm buying most of the stuff from, and get me some info on that and get that coming. And brake lines. So I just took all the old brake lines off, and they were old and gnarly, and got rid of them. And I'm also really considering strongly putting a rear disc brake conversion kit on this Dana 44 back here, in which case then I'll have, kind of a new arrangement of brake lines anyway. So as I do that, I'll sort that out, and then that will be all of the frame, basically the chassis completely ready, and then we'll get the motor rebuilt and the transmission and the transfer case gone through and get those back in place. And then when the tub gets here, we'll drop the tub on, and then we'll have everything under the tub will basically be done, and we'll be starting to get up into electrical and interior and that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at. This weekend should be a doozy. If I get this frame upside down without dropping it on my head, that'll be a major accomplishment. We'll see how that goes, so I'll bring you along because it might be good for a chuckle. These are the things that I worry about sometimes. I'm like, I think I know how I'm going to do this. I'm not 100% sure. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll let you keep an eye on me while I do it. Hey everybody, I think I had a great idea. So here's the thing. I've been thinking about this thing all night and today at work, and I realized that part of the scary part of working on this frame is the weight and lifting everything up. So here's what I thought I might do. I'm going to take the engine hoist, I'm going to grab the frame back here in the back, pick it up a little bit, drop my rear differential off by undoing those, just basically my 2 bolts through the leaf springs in the front and the back. Do that on both sides. In essence, lift the frame up off the differential. Then I've got the differential and the tires and everything sitting on the wheel chuck, so I can just spin it to the side, shove it out of the way, set the frame back down on jack stands. Go up to the front, repeat that same process, pick it up, move the axle up from underneath, set it down. Now I've got the frame sitting down close to the ground on the jack stands. Then I'm going to grab it again with lift and do my flip over thing. But I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get the axles out from underneath and yada yada. And I think I just landed on the solution. So that's my plan. And I think it's going to work. I think I'm a genius. So I think I'm a genius. I'm quite excited. Let's tear into this and see what happens, shall we? All right, well, I'm pretty sure by now my mantra is gonna have to be, there is always one bolt. So this son of a gun was the bolt through there. Part of it is still in the hole there. There it is. So that dude would not come out of there. So what I wound up doing, first I cut the end off, thought that might get it. That didn't work, so I had to go in alongside through my bushing with the cutoff blade and just cut that son of a gun off. I don't know why it was so hard. The others, once I started moving them, they came right out with a drift punch, but that one would not go, and I was pounding on the thing. So, not exactly to plan, but there's the differential from the rear end and the springs on it. New shackles are coming, so I may, while I got this all undone, pull those springs apart and paint them up. But there's that set right there. The rear end is off. Got the frame sitting down here on jack stands in the back. So I've learned a thing or two as I get ready to do the front, but I think this is one night's work. Had everything gone well, I'd have been done by now, but I'm gonna open up the garage door for a minute and just let the smoke out of here from where I was cutting through that bushing. It was smoking the place all up. Give the floor a quick sweep, and that'll do her for tonight. So the shenanigans continue, but we're making progress. So the front end's next, and hopefully it will go a little bit smoother. I mean, I got to get those shackles out of there anyway, because I mentioned I've got new ones coming to replace those. So those were kind of a throwaway item anyway, and obviously need new bolts through there. So it's okay. We're making progress and pretty much to plan. So that's all I got for now. Thanks. All right, well, I'm well along on the bottom part of the frame here, and I think it's time to do the internal frame painting. So here's the deal. You basically pop the top off and you put this little hose on, and then right here on the end is the little nozzle that sprays in all different directions. So you basically feed this dude in holes, spray, and pull it back out. So in the hole, spray, and pull it back out. So I've blown the frame out, as you can see by the floor here, all the dirt that came out of here. Surprise, surprise, all the dirt is the same color as Moab. I wonder how that is. So anyway, we'll see how this goes. I'll set you up and let you watch, and let's paint the inside of the frame, and then we're going to primer the outside of it. So we're at that point where we're going to start making a mess with some paint. So I'm going to put my mask on and tear into it. Well, the inner frame painting process was a little imprecise. I don't know if you could tell from the time-lapse thing I did, but I was just basically kind of going around sticking that hose up in there and spraying it, and some got on the garage door and some got on the garage floor and some got on me, and it was a little messy, but I tried to just put it in there really heavy. I used one can, about 3 cans of that stuff. So that's okay. I think we'll see how that goes. So then I did the last of the black rust encapsulating primer that I had. So the whole frame has now had a coat of primer, and the only thing it hasn't are the parts that I took off. However, those like these brackets for the back and spring shackles, those spring shackle hangers were powder coated, so those will be okay. But then, and then I didn't show you, but I got my cross member here in from the Throttle Down Kustoms guys up in Montana. So what I'm going to do with that is well, first I'm going to clean up a little bit because the garage floor is just covered with the dirt that I blew out of the frame. And so I'm going to sweep a little bit. I'm going to move that differential over here somewhere. I'm going to move this compressor back in the corner by the door so it's out of the way. And then I'm going to see if I can't kind of get the frame situated over here further so that I can get the car back in when I'm ready to. And then I'll pull my little table thing out here and set it up and paint that. Now what I'm going to do to prime that is I'm going to use a can of that 2 2X primer, the gray primer, because that doesn't need any rust encapsulation because it's brand new and it doesn't have any rust on it. So I'll paint that up, and then with that, and then I'll have opened one of those cans, so they'll want me to do the rest of it. I might, before I start on that, way over there against the wall is that front bumper. I'm not sure I'm gonna keep that bumper as the final bumper for this thing, because I'll just show you, the thing's gotta, let's put it up against the white garage door here. So you can see how many holes this thing has in it. And I don't really think it needs that many holes. So we'll see. It's not totally straight either. It's got a little bend here from about here on down. But I might just set this back over here. I might just give that due to sand as well. And I can use some of that gray primer on that while I'm finishing up with that. So all this dirt came out of the frame or off the frame. That's just the bottom of the frame. And you can see how much dirt is still around the floor. Maybe you can see, I got to sweep the whole floor. So I'll show you the whole pile when I'm done. But I've taken 100 pounds of dirt off this thing, I swear. So anyway, I'm going to get a little sweeping done, a little rearranging of stuff done. And excuse me. And then we'll set that cross member up, and I'll give you a good close look at that thing. It's a work of art. Those guys look like they really do a nice job. So I'm pretty impressed with that. I'll show it to you in more detail as we get ready to slap a coat of primer on that. So I'll be back in a bit and show you how we do on that. Okay, well, I told you I would show you this cross member. So this is it. I got it sitting up on the bench here, or on my little table, and I'm gonna just wipe it down with some acetone. I got to clean off some of where UPS slapped a bunch of barcode labels all over the thing. Give it a quick sand and throw some paint on this, or some primer on this thing. So anyway, this plate comes off, and let's see if I can stand this up. Show you the underside. Now, hang on. So this is the underside. So this is where the transmission or the transfer case mount bolts up. And then you can take this plate off so you can get to your pans without dropping the cross member, which is kind of nice. So I'll take that off as I prime it up, and we'll get her all ready to go. Well, there we go with the primer on the new cross member. It actually said it was gray on the can, but it sure looks like white to me, but no worries, that's fine. And I wound up using 2 full cans by the time I got 2 coats of primer on this thing, and kind of covered up all my places where I touched it and all that kind of thing. But it winds up, I think, looking pretty good at the end, and it's now ready for a good coat of the black epoxy frame paint, which should be here next week. So that's it for now. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time around.